Nigada, Jeff Ganaholido Corntassel Dagwadoa. So, hello everyone, my name is Jeff Corntassel. I'm from Cherokee Nation, and we're coming to you from the unceded Lekwungen and Wasanich territory. I'm really pleased to have Aaju Peter on the podcast today. We're on Frontlines Are Everywhere, which is a podcast all about expressions of Indigenous self-determination, Indigenous internationalism, and resurgence from across Turtle Island and beyond. So, Aaju, Wado, thank you so much for being on the show today. And I'm going to read a short bio, if that's okay, and then just have you introduce yourself. So, Aaju Peter is an Inuit activist, lawyer, educator, and clothing designer, most famous for her work defending the rights of the Inuit peoples in so-called Canada and Greenland. She travels the world to raise awareness of the challenges Inuit communities face and fights to protect and perpetuates their language and cultures, especially the seal hunt. Peter has developed school programs for the Inuit community, taught at Inuk, and was a cultural advisor and lecturer at the University of Saskatchewan's Nunavut Law Program. She worked as a cultural facilitator, collecting Inuit customary law from elders on behalf of Nunavut's Justice Minister. In 2012, Peter received the Order of Canada for preserving and promoting Inuit culture and practices. Peter is co-writer on Twice Colonized, which came out in 2023, 7 years in the making. She was also featured in The Angry Inuk in 2016, which is a documentary about a new generation of Inuit defending the seal hunt as a means to sustain themselves. Peter was also in Retracing the Line of Inuit Tattoos, a profoundly personal work in which the filmmaker learns about traditional Inuit face tattoos for women and decides to get some of her own. Peter also appeared in John Walker's film Arctic Defenders, which follows the radical Inuit movement begun in 1968 to reclaim their land and establish a new territory, Nunavut, and a government they would control and assert self-determination. So Wado, thank you, Aaju, for being with us today, and I'll just open it up for you to introduce yourself.
My name is Aaju Peter. I live in Iqaluit in Nunavut, Canadian Arctic. I moved here from Greenland in 1981, and I have lived here ever since. I love Canada.
Excellent. And yeah, I've watched your film Twice Colonized, so we'll talk a little bit about that, but such a powerful film and such an amazing expression of some of your life experiences and the tragedy, if you will, of being twice colonized. I usually start with this question, and I will see what where you want to go with it on Indigenous internationalism. And Indigenous internationalism, we can think of it as different ways that we trade with each other. Activism, which you've been a part of, lots of movements, treaties, diplomacy that we engage in with ourselves, with the plant nations, with the animal nations. What is this term? Does this term resonate with you, or does it, what does it mean for you?
I actually didn't know what it meant until you explained it to me, and that's actually what I have done my whole life.
Yeah.
Because we were forced to go and attend Danish schooling, and our teachers didn't understand our language, so we had to learn their language and their way of being. So it's everywhere. It's around us all the time. Also, even when I go to Greenland, I notice that even with the people I have come from, the way of being and thinking and holding ourselves is different on the Canadian side. So it's interesting to see how 300 years of colonization, as opposed to about 100, 150 years how much it has influenced how people live and think and act.
Absolutely. Yeah, what for that. You've had a lot of experiences and a lot of struggles. Who are some of the the people that have really influenced your life, or that you've looked up to as whether they're mentors or kind of leaders?
There's so many leaders, so many professors from UVic that I really look up to, who came here to teach us, and so many other professors we had who guided us in our law program. Lucian was our elder in the law program. Mariano Ablasiuk is an amazing Inuit elder, but they have passed away. So many elders who influenced me and inspired me so much. And still we have many leaders here today that never stop. We find that we have to go through twice as much, I think, being colonized peoples in order to achieve the same level. I was at an airport some years ago where two older men were talking about which university their child was going to go to. And they had so many choices. And I thought to myself, it would be so nice if my grandkids could have that problem of which university should we go to? Because Canada is the only country, northern country, that doesn't have a university in the Arctic. And all we can aspire to is what? Become teachers or nurse? No, not even nurses. Truck drivers, cleaners, work at the northern store. I mean, it's an injustice, and it needs to be set up. No more excuses about, well, there's not enough people. That's not a good excuse.
Yeah, do you think there's a movement to start a university in the Arctic? Or is there?
The language school I work for is working with University of Victoria, so that we can have a higher level of Inuit learning here in Nunavut. I don't know how far or if anything has happened further with talking about establishing a university. There's too many. I find that compared to Greenland, there's too many captains of the same ship here, like the federal government, the regional government, the local community, the local community, the different colleges. There's way too many trying to cook in the kitchen here. In Greenland, it's very simple. One government, two universities in Inuk, and much more simple and less expensive.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, I guess what does, I think of different emotions like, anger, grief, all of those things as kind of a form of us, pushing back against the colonizer. And so what does, when we grieve, I guess, as Indigenous peoples, or when you have that expression of grief, how does that create more room for maybe other parts of your activism, if that makes sense?
We have so much trauma, past having been relocated, children sent away, and the story. And then today we have so much grief with suicides, with women beaten and murdered, and lack of our own language not being taught in school or properly, or being even taught. There's so much. I mean, it's like putting all the troubles in one pot and shake it, and this is what you get. What do we tackle first, and where do we go in order to move forward? Where do we put the money in order to move forward? Our grieving, I think, makes us even stronger. We become much more resilient. It's like a balloon that keeps being blown air into, but the more it gets blown air into, expanded, it becomes stronger. We're more human, we have more empathy, we have more understanding on people that grieve or on people that have a hard time. This is why our hunters are still providing for the communities, even though the animal rights groups have crushed our economy in stealing and being able to sell the seals. Our hunters are raised to still provide for our communities and to share the food, because we live in a place that is much more expensive than any other place in Canada, and we are taxpayers. Let's say if an orange is $10, I pay tax for whatever I buy up here twice, 3 times, 10 times as much than what I would down. So I think it's really unfair that we have to have such a high cost of living when outsiders, Europeans, can come in through the back door and kill us, like crush our economy. That's really not acceptable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it undermines your food sovereignty. It undermines your ability to live off the land and then charging you these outrageous prices.
And that way of hunting and learning is not being passed on because you can't afford to go out and hunt it anyways.
Yeah, thank you for that. At what point in the film you're writing your book and you pose a question, and I wonder if it's fair, I'll ask you the question that you posed. Is it possible to change the world and mend your own wounds at the same time? And I know that's a huge question. Do you think that's possible? Do you think that's based on your own experience?
Well, if we waited to be happy, if we waited to think that now is a good time, then nothing would ever get accomplished.
Yeah.
We have to, while mending our own wounds, we are learning. Nothing is ever static. So you always have to, and I also think as Indigenous people, we're very good at laughing and having fun and having joy as part of the healing process, and also be engaged with doing other things. I very much believe that we have to do things for other people. We can't just sit around and just look after ourselves and that's it. How boring would that be? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you're so right. I think I'm a big proponent of humor. I think humor helps fuel our activism. I think it fuels our resilience. You know, we're able to laugh at sometimes the most tragic things. You know, as Cherokees, we have jokes about the Trail of Tears, which is one of the lowest points in our nation's history of being removed, but yet we can still laugh about those tragic things and find ways to put it into perspective.
I think how Inuit were able to survive was they're so easy to laugh. They're easy to laugh at themselves. They love having fun.
Yeah.
And I think the two, harshness and joy, go together.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I saw a film, it was Inuit produced, and I always mispronounce it, but it's the word for white person, anyway, yeah, and it was all about kind of white people studies, and it was very funny, and very, very good at showing the humor and pointing at the colonial realities, right?
Yeah.
You've done so many films, and you've got these amazing artwork, clothing designs. What are some of your favorite works that you've done? What are those things that stand out for you that make them a little bit, that make them special?
When my granddaughters were smaller, I looked at the picture taken in 1936 of their great grandmother and her traditional sealskin amouti carrying her child. So my daughter and I reproduced those in sealskin. I'm very proud of those.
Yeah.
The former Governor General Adrian Clarkson has one of my designs, sealskin, when she came up. I made the cover for the Pierre Trudeau's when he was being remembered. I made the cover in sealskin, and people wrote notes in it. The art of the language of the Inuit I had lost when I was going to school in Denmark. I'm very proud that I regained that, and I'm now teaching it back to the Inuit who need to learn their own language. And I'm in the process of starting a business to create even more clothes so that I'm not just sitting here stitching one thing at a time.
Right.
So I can provide more for more people.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Do you know what the name of that company will be, or
We were talking about it.
Yeah.
The suggestion was you.
Okay.
I also thought about something with the Inuit name in it, but for now it is very close to my name, Aaju.
I like it.
If it is I and you, then that's all we need.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah. What for that? You mentioned your daughter, your granddaughter, and even the difficulty of sharing knowledge with future generations. What are some of the struggles that you see of sharing the language with future generations? You mentioned some of them, but what are some of the other ones? Even around seal hunting, getting out on the land. What are some of those struggles that you see?
Personally, I don't have a husband. I don't have a boat. I don't have those skills.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where I would have loved to be able to take them out. So many families here are so lucky to have boats and taking their children, grandchildren out hunting. I would being out on the land for the whole summer. The other struggles we have here on the Canadian side is continuation of the language, because now everybody is on their little tablets or phones and everything is in English. It's good to be able to speak and understand English, but I think it's also very important that we not forget our own language, how important our language is for the environment it was derived from. And that's a struggle.
Yeah. I think one of the things that struck me from Twice Colonized, and even though some of the things that you've talked about, is the close interrelationship to what happens to the land also happens to our bodies, especially in a colonial context. Well, I guess when thinking about that as kind of the front line of protection, but also you mentioned murdered or missing Indigenous women and girls, right? That's a very real everyday problem that we face in our communities. How do we what are you seeing in terms of rising up to that challenge, those challenges? How are we going to confront those challenges for future generations?
I think what we are doing right now and what I've been doing, distance education, is very good with the technology. Like I can visit any school sitting at home without having to go all that way. I think we need more education both ways.
Yeah.
When I was coming back from Europe in 2007 after protesting their anti-stealing campaign, of course we couldn't be screaming and be angry like they were, because our elders tell us we cannot fight with other people when it comes to the animal. So I thought, okay, then why don't we all become sister cities? 25 European countries and 25 Inuit communities, pair them up as sister cities, and they can start having exchanges. And this way, the Europeans will understand how important sealing is to us and hunting. And the Inuit can understand why they're thinking like that. They buy everything from a store. Everything is covered with concrete and they don't see nature. So I think it would be great to have exchanges and a better understanding. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that's such a powerful way of sharing our knowledge, right?
Yeah.
And bringing it to life. I remember watching The Angry Inuk, and it had such a powerful impact on me as well. And I guess, there's still those misconceptions about seal hunting, and, there's still activism around that that's really, as I see it, silencing Inuit voices, silencing, those who are doing hunting. And so what has changed, if anything, since that film was released in 2016? What are some things that you think are still barriers to understanding Inuit relationships with seals and other animals?
Lack of education, first of all, and people just buying that, swallowing whole the whole propaganda, like an image. We try to fight the image of the seal blood, red blood on white ice with a hunter with a club. That is so imprinted in people's minds that it has been very hard to put the Inuit face on how important sealing is. But since Angry Inuk and Twice Colonized has come out, that we're reaching thousands, maybe even millions of people who are starting to get a better understanding of the seal hunt and the importance of it to us.
That's great. Yeah. Do you think that Canada adopting DRIPA, or the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, will that assist in the effort? I guess it can't hurt, right?
It can't hurt, but what I was also pushing for, since the Europeans were so stupid to ban the import of seal, I was thinking, well, every time I go to the parliament there's nobody to help me. There's no Indigenous office. They have the Greenpeace offices. They have all kinds of people promoting one side. How come we don't have representation? If we're being affected by a legislation, how come we don't have representation there to promote our side of the story? I thought that was so gravely unjust.
It is. And have you made any headway with that? I know you're calling for kind of a new Indigenous, like a council or a ministry, right?
Yeah. I haven't specifically done it yet. I'm quite busy, but I'm really hoping that I should become the queen of the world, and I would decree it right away.
Well, you've got my vote of confidence for that.
Thank you.
Yes. What are some of the messages that you'd like to put forward to the youth, especially Indigenous youth or Inuit youth, around self-determination, around even the climate crisis?
We have so many amazing young people that lead even younger generations. They're so smart. They're out there, like Alethea Annakuk Barrel and many other young people who joined the anti-sealing campaign. There's so much hope, and just if you want to learn something, go to people you can learn from and be proud of who you are. We, as Indigenous peoples, we were here first, and we have a right to be here first. Our language needs to be here first. Our culture, our relations need to be here first. We shouldn't be accepting outsiders that come and impose their own system of being unkind. They can't even look at you and say, hi, how are you?
Yeah.
And they're in our community. There should be a checklist of at the airport before they are allowed to enter. Are you a kind person? You're going to be kind to and help the indigenous community here. If not, if you're just here for yourself to just make money and leave again, then I don't think there's a place for you here.
I like that. I like that. I wish there was a way to gauge kindness immediately. Because as Indigenous peoples, we have such generosity and such kindness.
And we let
yeah.
that being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And the women especially, we let that being taken advantage of. We're not trying to give ourselves to be taken advantage of. We're just showing our culture because we have to be kind and helpful and just have a good heart and look at other people with good intentions, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like Europeans or Western culture views kindness as a form of weakness. And I don't understand that because it's such a strength.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're a busy person. What are some projects that you're super excited about right now that are in the works?
I'm teaching early childhood educators.
Wonderful.
And then I'm teaching teacher trainees. I myself will be attending school for higher level Inuit learning, so I can start teaching at a higher level. I'm in the process of setting up a company to start producing my line of clothing.
Oh, yeah.
And part of that arm is going to be training those who would like to learn how to use machines and make patterns and make garments. So it's never boring.
Yeah. Yeah, life is never boring.
No.
That's true. Well, I'm excited to hear more about that as they unfold. Even the Aaju, I like that. Yes. I like that name. Is there anything we didn't talk about today? We've covered a wide range of things, but is there anything we didn't talk about today that you'd like to talk more about?
I was asked to speak at a trauma symposium here, and I had to look up what that word meant.
Yeah.
So I went on YouTube, and there was Gabriel Mate, and he is so wise. So I got some books, I read some books, and I said, I wrote him and asked him if I could get those translated into Inuktitut.
Oh, yeah.
And he suggested in the realm of hungry ghosts that we start with that one. Because having gone through so much trauma, we don't talk about it. We need to start talking. So I was thinking after each chapter or a particular item, we would podcast it, we would talk about it on the radio. We have to come up with terminology that deals specifically. There's so many terms that we don't have because we don't talk about them, and I think this could be the starting to heal a nation, start to heal us, that you weren't just born in 1960 and here you are. Something happened, like policies happened, all these other things happened that had an influence on how your life is today, and they all came from somewhere. So trying to make sense of them and explain them, I think, would be so much better for us.
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds like such an important project. Well, and I hope you are able to get support for that.
I have so many projects on the go or want to do. I hope some of them will work out.
Yeah.
We all only get 24 hours in a day, and that's not long enough, I think.
It's never long enough. And it's been such a pleasure to speak with you today, Aaju. And and hear about the inspiring work that you're doing. You're a true warrior for your people and for Indigenous peoples, and it's an honor. So, Wadoa, thank you.
Thank you too, Jeff, for having me. It was nice. It was good to speak with you.
And we'll look forward to seeing you in Victoria at some point.
Coming.
Yes. All right. So that wraps it up. Okay. We say Donda Goahi until our paths cross again.
Doda Goahi.
Yeah. Donda Goahi.